For most people, the idea of removing salt from their lives entirely sounds impossible. We're surrounded by it, in every meal, every snack, every craving. From chips to canned soup to the simple act of seasoning a tomato, salt is everywhere. But what if someone told you they haven't touched a salt shaker in over 40 years? This is the true story of a man who made that choice, not because a doctor forced him, not because of a sudden health scare, but because he believed, decades ago, that a quiet enemy was hiding in plain sight. His friends thought he was extreme. His family rolled their eyes when he passed on soy sauce or turned down a slice of pizza. But today, at 95 years old, he's one of the few people in his age group who has never been diagnosed with hypertension. And when researchers studied his lifestyle, they weren't just surprised, they were stunned. Let's rewind. He was in his mid-50s when he started feeling off. No big issues, no major symptoms, just a persistent tension in his head, tiredness that wouldn't go away, and a racing pulse after meals. Back then, people didn't track their sodium intake. Nutrition labels were less detailed. Fast food was exploding in popularity, but he was ahead of his time. After reading an obscure medical journal about Japanese stroke rates and salt consumption, he made a decision, a radical one. He threw away the salt in his house. He didn't stop there. He stopped eating processed foods, no bacon, no sausages, no instant noodles, no chips. He even stopped eating bread that contained sodium bicarbonate. For most, this would feel like punishment, but he treated it like a mission. Every meal he cooked from scratch, rice with steamed vegetables, boiled beans, lightly grilled fish, no seasoning, just the taste of the food itself. And here's what happened. At his next doctor visit, his blood pressure had dropped. At first, the doctor thought it was a fluke, but every visit after that confirmed the trend. From a borderline hypertensive state, he had normalized his blood pressure completely. Not just temporarily, but permanently. And more importantly, over the next 40 years, it never climbed again. How rare is that? Let's put it in perspective. In the US, over 70% of adults over 65 have high blood pressure. Many take multiple medications. Some still experience spikes despite treatment. But this man, zero medication, zero spikes, zero symptoms, just stability. And while salt isn't the only factor in blood pressure, modern science has confirmed something he intuited long ago. Excess sodium increases vascular resistance. When your bloodstream is overloaded with sodium, your body holds onto water to dilute it. This increases the volume of blood in your vessels, forcing your heart to work harder and putting strain on your arteries. Over time, this pressure stiffens the arteries, leading to chronic hypertension, stroke, kidney disease, and even dementia. The most fascinating part? Most people don't even realize they're consuming too much. The average American consumes over 300-400 milligrams of sodium daily. The recommended maximum? 200-300 milligrams. Ideally, less than 1,500 milligrams if you're over 50. That means nearly everyone is overdoing it, silently, unknowingly. And our 95-year-old example, his daily sodium intake, barely 800 milligrams. It's not that he was scared of salt. He simply respected its power. He believed something deeply. If you don't control what goes into your body, you don't control what comes out of it. That philosophy governed more than just food. It was about restraint, simplicity, consciousness. And according to his doctor, that mindset, paired with his salt-free diet, may have added decades of health to his life. How his taste buds adapted and what science now says about salt sensitivity. At first, his meals tasted bland, lifeless even. He missed the crackle of sea salt on grilled vegetables. He missed the tang of soy sauce. He certainly missed the convenience of just grabbing a sandwich or heating up a can of soup. But then something remarkable happened. His taste buds began to change. Within 2 months, flavors that once seemed dull now felt vibrant. A tomato tasted sweeter. Steamed broccoli had a buttery richness he'd never noticed before. Even plain rice took on subtle, nutty undertones. How was this possible? Scientists now know the human tongue is incredibly adaptive. When you remove salt for several weeks, your salt receptors become more sensitive. Your brain recalibrates what it considers flavorful. Begin to notice natural tastes, the earthy depth of mushrooms, the sweetness in carrots, the creaminess of beans. He often said, "I didn't lose flavor, I found it." And that shift wasn't just in his mouth, it was in his brain chemistry. Studies show that sodium can hijack the reward center in your brain, much like sugar. It makes you crave more. It amplifies your perception of satisfaction. But once it's removed and the cravings pass, your brain rebalances, no longer needing the artificial high. That's exactly what happened with him. His desire for salty snacks vanished. Cravings stopped controlling him. His relationship with food became one of awareness, not addiction. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Modern research now categorizes people into two types: salt-sensitive and salt-resistant. Salt-sensitive individuals, which includes many older adults, people of African descent, and those with kidney or metabolic issues, are far more likely to experience blood pressure spikes when consuming sodium. And for them, even normal sodium intake can be dangerous. Guess what? He turned out to be one of those salt-sensitive types. Except, he never waited for a diagnosis. He acted early, decades before the term was even popularized. Today, there are millions of people walking around with undiagnosed salt sensitivity, chalking up their fatigue, headaches, and rising pressure to stress or age, never realizing that a single nutrient may be the trigger. But he didn't wait for symptoms to escalate. He changed course early, and the benefits didn't stop with blood pressure. Over the years, his kidney function remained stable. His bone density stayed strong. And unlike many his age, he never experienced swelling in his hands or feet, a common sign of sodium-induced water retention. He even claimed that his sleep improved. "I sleep like a baby," he'd say. "No pounding heart, no dry mouth, just peace." Some laughed. Others dismissed it as exaggeration. But when doctors reviewed his lab work, they couldn't deny the results. Stable blood pressure, clear arteries, minimal calcification, no signs of chronic inflammation. And this wasn't due to genetics. His siblings had all developed hypertension or cardiovascular disease. He was the only one who remained untouched, and he believed it was because of that one decision, to eliminate salt. But let's be clear, he didn't live on boiled lettuce. He explored natural herbs, spices, and acidic ingredients to add flavor. Lemon juice, vinegar, garlic, ginger, cumin, rosemary. Each added depth to his meals without a grain of salt. He created dishes that didn't just nourish, they excited. He often invited friends over to try them, and after a few bites, even skeptics admitted, "I didn't think I'd like this, but it's amazing." And when asked if he ever slipped, ever gave in to a salty temptation, he smiled and said, "No, not because I had to, but because I didn't want to." It wasn't about restriction, it was about transformation. The hidden sources of salt in your diet, and why most people miss them. If you ask the average person where they get most of their sodium, they'll likely point to the salt shaker, but they'd be wrong. Over 70% of the sodium people consume doesn't come from adding salt at the table. It comes from processed and restaurant foods. And this is where the 95-year-old man's story becomes even more relevant. He didn't just avoid salt. He avoided the invisible salt, the kind you don't taste but still consume in excess. Let's look at some everyday examples. One slice of regular white bread, about 150 milligrams of sodium. A single serving of canned soup, up to 900 milligrams. A fast food cheeseburger, around 100 milligrams. And that's before you add fries. Even healthy frozen meals often contain over 1,000 milligrams per tray. That means someone could reach or exceed the daily limit without even realizing it, and without ever picking up a salt shaker. Our salt-free elder understood this. That's why he stopped eating anything that came in a box, a can, or a plastic tray. He didn't fear preservatives. He feared ignorance, and his commitment to transparency paid off. By preparing every meal from scratch, he controlled every ingredient. He knew what was going into his body, and more importantly, what wasn't. But what about eating out? For decades, he simply avoided it. Restaurants, especially in his earlier years, rarely disclosed nutritional information. Sauces, marinades, rubs, all packed with sodium. Later in life, when menus became more transparent, he would carefully scan for steamed or grilled items without sauces or seasonings. Servers often raised eyebrows, but he'd politely explain, "No salt, please, not even a pinch." Was it inconvenient? Sure. Was it socially isolating? At times. But to him, the trade-off was worth it. Clarity, control, and a body that didn't betray him as he aged. Here's something else that might shock you. Salt doesn't just affect your blood pressure. It can affect your immune system. Emerging studies show that excess sodium may contribute to chronic inflammation, the root of many diseases, including arthritis, diabetes, and even some cancers. In one animal study, high-salt diets reduced the function of regulatory T cells, key players in maintaining immune balance. Another human trial found that high-salt intake could increase pro-inflammatory immune responses, making the body more susceptible to autoimmunity. In short, salt doesn't just raise numbers on a monitor. It may quietly stir up chaos inside your cells. The 95-year-old man didn't have access to this cutting-edge research. He didn't need to. He trusted his body. When he stopped eating salt, his mind cleared. His headaches faded. His energy returned. That feedback was enough. Over time, he learned to read his body like a finely tuned instrument. When something felt off, he'd examine his food first. Did he accidentally eat out and feel bloated the next day? Did he attend a party and eat something mystery seasoned, only to feel fatigued after? These experiences only strengthened his resolve. He wasn't paranoid, he was precise. And precision, in his case, led to prevention. How salt became a staple, and why that might be a mistake. Salt has been called the cornerstone of civilization. It preserved food long before refrigeration. It enabled trade routes. It even sparked wars. But the question is, did it deserve a permanent seat at our table? Historically, salt was vital because it prevented spoilage. Before modern food storage, it was the difference between feast and famine. Sailors salted meat to survive voyages. Farmers salted vegetables to survive winters. Over centuries, salt gained power beyond utility. It became a symbol of flavor, wealth, and even loyalty. The word salary comes from salarium, the money Roman soldiers were given to buy salt. But fast forward to today, food is everywhere, refrigeration is common, and salt no longer serves the same purpose. Yet it remains in nearly everything we eat. Why? Because it's cheap, it's addictive, and it makes processed food taste good, even when it's low quality. Food manufacturers know this. They use salt to trigger your dopamine system. A single bite of a salty snack lights up the brain, just like sugar. It's not your willpower that fails. It's a neurochemical trap. That's why the 95-year-old man's choice to eliminate salt wasn't just about health. It was about freedom. He rejected the idea that food had to manipulate him to be enjoyable. He didn't want to be dependent on taste enhancers. He wanted to experience real food, real hunger, and real satisfaction. He often said, "Once I escaped the salt trap, I started living differently. Everything slowed down. I chewed more. I noticed more. I ate less." And here's the twist. He actually enjoyed food more once salt was gone. His meals became meditative. Simplicity led to appreciation. He didn't crave intensity. He craved honesty and flavor. His taste buds weren't numbed by overstimulation. They were alive. When others needed sauces and seasonings to mask bland ingredients, he found joy in the subtle contrast of textures, the crispness of cabbage, the creaminess of lentils, the mild umami of mushrooms. He was proof that flavor isn't volume, it's clarity. And perhaps most importantly, his heart, quite literally, thanked him for it. His resting heart rate stayed low. His pulse remained steady. His arteries stayed elastic, free of the stiffness that plagues most people after 80. Was it all because of salt? Not entirely. But salt was the domino that changed his mindset. It was the first thing he removed, and the first thing that gave him results. That early success motivated him to walk more, sleep better, meditate daily, eat less sugar, eat more whole foods, drink more water. Salt wasn't just a dietary change. It was a catalyst. And this is why his story matters. Because it shows that even one change, one decision, can set off a chain reaction that reshapes an entire life. He didn't need to follow a trendy diet. He didn't count macros. He didn't take 30 supplements or wear a fitness tracker. He just listened to his body and gave it what it asked for. Less stimulation, more nourishment, less excess, more intention. And that mindset might be the true reason he's thriving at 95. What doctors say now and the 5 rules he followed for 40 years. When he first gave up salt, doctors thought he was overreacting. Some even warned him, "You need some sodium, don't take it too far." But decades later, many of those same doctors, or their younger colleagues, began to reconsider. Why? Because the science finally caught up to what he intuitively understood. Modern cardiologists now emphasize sodium as a primary contributor to hypertension. Nephrologists link high salt intake with kidney stress. Neurologists associate it with increased risk for stroke and even cognitive decline. In fact, the World Health Organization has declared reducing salt intake one of the most cost-effective interventions to prevent heart disease globally. Still, the average intake remains dangerously high. And here's the irony. Reducing sodium is free. You don't need a prescription. You don't need a supplement. You don't need a gym membership. Just one decision, one shift in awareness can start changing your numbers within days. That's what the 95-year-old man proved. He didn't wait for a crisis. He didn't wait for a wake-up call. He acted early, consistently, quietly. And for those wondering how he managed it for 40 years, here were his 5 personal rules. Rule number 1, no salt in the house. Ever. Out of sight, out of mouth. He didn't keep salt in the kitchen, not even for guests. He believed convenience was the gateway to relapse. So he removed the option entirely. Rule number 2, read every label, twice. He didn't buy anything without reading its sodium content. If the milligrams were too high, it stayed on the shelf. Over time, he memorized safe brands and stuck to them. Rule number 3, cook everything himself. From soups to snacks, everything was made from scratch. Not only did it give him full control, it brought him joy. Cooking became his daily ritual, his way of nourishing with love. Rule number 4, replace, don't restrict. He never focused on what he couldn't have. He focused on what he could discover. Herbs, spices, citrus, fermented vegetables, roasted garlic. These were his tools of transformation. Rule number 5, track how you feel, not just numbers. Kept a small notebook. After meals, he would jot down how he felt, energized or tired, light or bloated. Patterns emerged. He trusted his lived experience more than any app or algorithm. Today, he's a medical anomaly. No medications, no major surgeries, sharp memory, steady hands, a daily walk that still stretches over 2 miles. His doctor recently remarked, "He's the healthiest 95-year-old I've ever seen. It's like his arteries are 50 years younger." And this isn't just a story about salt. It's a story about awareness, consistency, simplicity. In a world of endless health hacks, biohacking gadgets, and complicated regimens, his approach is refreshingly human. Eat simply, listen closely, act early, and commit fully. You don't need to become a monk. You don't need to eliminate salt completely, but maybe, just maybe, we can learn something from the man who did. The man who lived 4 decades without salt and gained a lifetime of health in return. Final words and call to action. If this story made you think twice about your own daily habits, good. It means you're paying attention. It means you're aware. Awareness is the first step to transformation. So, what's your one small change? You don't need to do everything. You just need to start. If you found this video inspiring, please like it. It helps more people discover stories that matter. Don't forget to subscribe to Human Health Hub for more real-life longevity stories and science-backed health tips every week. Your health is your story. Make it a powerful one. See you in the next video.